Donald Trump has the media and much of the country talking about 9/11, and more importantly, he has Jeb Bush talking about George W. Bush and defending his brother in a way that can't be good news for his campaign. Now, this whole brouhaha started during a Bloomberg interview when, in response to a question, Donald Trump said that the World Trade Center came down on George W. Bush's watch during his reign. He didn't directly blame President Bush for that, although some may have thought that was the implication. But this prompted a sharp response from Jeb, who said this was pathetic and repeated his line about how his brother kept us safe. And that, in fact, is the whole point of the debate here, because any fair reading of this, in my view, would say that the Bush administration and the Clinton administration share responsibility for the fact that we were so woefully unprepared for this al-Qaeda attack, this devastating attack that claimed the lives of 3,000 Americans. But in terms of the campaign, now Trump has since gone on to say, well, he's not blaming Bush personally, but had his policies been in charge, had he been in office at the time, his much more restrictive approach to immigration might have, he doesn't say it would, but might have kept some of the hijackers out, some of them who were here on student visas or other kinds of visas. And at the same time, the more that Jeb Bush feels forced to defend George W., he's doing two things. He's on the defensive and talking about the past. That's never a good situation for a presidential candidate. And he is having to remind the world that he is the third Bush to seek the White House. This is a guy who is trying to make the theme of his campaign, I'm my own man. But the more he is tied together with George W. Bush, the more that it is hard for him to break through, because any discussion of what happened on 9/11, whether it was President Bush's fault or not, and as I say, and it's not just the two administrations, but Congress and the media, all of whom bear, I think, collective responsibility for the fact that the country simply was not prepared. We used to be able to just walk onto an airplane in those days. Hard to remember now, 14 years later. But at the same time, Jeb Bush is in a difficult position because he feels like he has to attack Trump, which, by the way, has gotten him more attention than I'd say he's received in the last couple of weeks. And he has to defend his brother. But again, the more he defends his brother, the more he's not talking about his plans for the future, his tax cut plan, his record as governor of Florida. So Trump has once again managed to say something that shakes up the campaign, that a lot of people said, oh, how can he say that? And you know who really loves the fact that Trump is now zeroing in on George W. Bush's responsibility, or if he has any responsibility for the September 11th attacks? It's the liberals. It's people like Chris Matthews, who said on MSNBC that the Democrats didn't have the stones to attack Bush before in the aftermath, when the country was grieving, when the country did come together, and when President Bush did a good job of rallying the country after those awful attacks. The Democrats, the liberals, they suddenly love Trump for bringing this up. So once again, Trump driving the campaign conversation in a way that arguably benefits him and hurts one of his main rivals.